Warning, the following ZipRecruiter radio spot you are about to hear is going to be filled with F-words.
When you're hiring, we at ZipRecruiter know you can feel frustrated, forlorn even, like your efforts are futile, and you can spend a fortune trying to find fabulous people, only to get flooded with candidates who are just fine. Fortunately, ZipRecruiter figured out how to fix all that. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/zip. With ZipRecruiter, you can forget your frustrations because we find the right people for your roles fast, which is our absolute favorite F word. In fact, 4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day.
Fantastic.
So, whether you need to hire 4, 40, or 400 people, get ready to meet first-rate talent. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/zip to try ZipRecruiter for free. Don't forget, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip. Finally, that's ZipRecruiter.com/zip.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
May the 25th be with you on a Memorial Day Monday. Welcome on in to Follow the Money. No, it's not Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard. That is John Jastrzemski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. We got you covered for the next 3 hours on an awesome Memorial Day, a wild time to be here. We're so much of our job, John, we're always hyping up football season, and I get it. Like, from our prep perspective, football season's awesome. But what more could you ask for today? Memorial Day Monday, we got baseball all over the place. We've got games in action. We've got one about to start that we'll preview in a moment. We've got a huge game on the wood, a massive one on the ice. It doesn't really get better than this time of year, in my opinion.
I think you're onto something there, Dusty. And look, we had this discussion yesterday doing the VSiN Weekend Morning Line. The 3 summer holiday weekends. We have Memorial Day weekend, you have 4th of July weekend, and you have Labor Day weekend. And Will Hill and I are in agreement on this. People are going to look at Labor Day weekend and say, oh, it's the return of college football. It means you have football back. I think this is a better sports weekend. I do, because that Sunday and Monday game you might get in college football ends up being a snoozer. I mean, Belichick lost by like 10 zillion points last year. So you nailed it. Full slate of baseball. I got a couple of bets already in. My Yankees are up 1-0 on the Royals as we speak. We want to bring that baby home. We have my beloved New York Knicks, 1 win away from their first finals in 27 years. I was in middle school the last time that happened. So we want to bring that baby home. And then you got a big night on the ice. So yeah, playoff hockey, playoff basketball, full slate of baseball. With simpatico, my man.
And we got a basketball coach that you'll hear from later who's sounding like your favorite plus EV better, telling you that his algorithms got it all figured out, even though he's down units on the season. The hockey last night was crazy. We'll get into that in just a minute. But right now, I want to get everyone situated on where we stand with the baseball. And you mentioned, JJ, your Yankees, Cody Bellinger with a ding-dong at Kauffman, the Yankees with an early lead on the road at Kansas City. This thing got steamed down. We were looking at like minus 150-ish on Kansas City or on New York last night, went all the way down to minus 130 with Will Warren on the bump. It is a game I'm on the under, though. I'm on the under 9. I'm also on your boy Will Warren, who I keep calling Adam Warren over and over again, to go over 16.5 outs recorded. But this is a spot for the Yankees offense they got to get right. And maybe those fences moved into Kauffman could help them out here. They're not great scoring runs on the road, but real positive sign to get off to a good start against Michael Wacha.
And my feeling with this game was, the Yankees escape this torture series against Tampa Bay. And I think they were counting their lucky stars, Dustin, quite frankly, that they only had to play 2 of these 3 games, because when they play the Rays force them to play a certain style of play that gets them completely out of their element. And if you follow, listen, I'm not a nutty guy with the trends, but I'll notice one every now and again. It kind of sticks with you. The Yankees own these teams in the American League Central, and they have owned the Kansas City Royals, including a playoff series from a couple of years ago. So you're absolutely right. A lot of my Vegas betting instincts would have said, why am I baited? Why am I taking the Yankees when it opened 155, 160, and then it's down to 131, 132? I just thought too much value. Will Warren has thrown the ball well. Good signs early from the Yankee offense. I don't want to mush this, but so far, so good.
Yeah, look, I don't want to take anything away from Cam Schlittler and the rest of this pitching staff, and I know Schlittler's the favorite for the Cy Young for a reason, but put some respect on Will Warren's name. I think he's having a fantastic season, and he looks like a guy that you might be giving the ball to in October if you're the New York Yankees. Now, you touched on the Rays. They're in action right now. Baltimore has come back. They were down 1-0 last inning. Where do we stand right now in that game? We are looking at that game in the 8th inning. Baltimore just plated 2 runs. They lead 2-1. Tampa Bay coming into this game, number 1 in batting average, number 1 in on base, number 2 in ERA, number 2 in whip. They've won 9 straight series openers. Entering today, that streak could be on the brink right now. Baltimore leads 2-1. Baltimore's a -372 favorite, plus 262 with Tampa. Your in-game total's 4.5. I put this up at VSiN.com/picks last night. I took a little flyer on the O's plus 115. So hoping that thing comes through here, as I have to trust the Baltimore bullpen, JJ, that I don't really love at the back end.
Yeah, listen, Baltimore is a team I had high hopes for at the beginning of the year. I bet them as an over for their wins.
Same.
Thought they'd find their way into the postseason. The team that has just stunned me this season, dude, how about what Tampa Bay is doing? And as someone that roots for the New York Yankees, as somebody that does a whole lot of New York sports content, if you go back a year ago, you looked at the run differential for the Toronto Blue Jays, and all year I was poking holes in it. All year I was saying, hey, the reckoning's coming. There's no way in the world Toronto is going to be able to keep doing this. Well, they won the division. They beat the Yankees in 4. They made it to Game 7 of the World Series, where in my humble opinion, they thoroughly outplayed the Los Angeles Dodgers. Should have won that series. Didn't. They could actually have more remorse and have more what if than Kenny Atkinson in Cleveland. But be that as it may, I thought, hey, Toronto all year, fluky. When is the other shoe going to drop? I've been saying the same things about Tampa, but Tampa's getting that run differential up. Tampa's got some big-time young pitching. Tampa knows how to win close games. They're legit, and that's why they're playoff odds. You've seen it move drastically from where it was even 2 or 3 weeks ago to where it is right now. Going to be really surprised if they're on the outside looking in.
And Tampa just tied it up. Just as I said, I don't
know
what
this Baltimore
bullpen.
They're machines, dude. They're machines.
I believe it was Aranda just went to right field, drove in the tying run. They're not done, by the way. 8th inning, 1 out. And all of a sudden, that number is flipped. It's Tampa Bay -122, Baltimore -107. Now, JJ and I are in sync on one team in the American League East. We'll talk about that later on in the show, because you start doing the math on where a lot of these teams are. We're about at the 1/3 way mark for the season. There's plenty of room left to improve, but for some teams, it may not be enough time to make up for ground that they've already lost. But we like one team, both of us, to make a push here for the postseason. Also currently in action, we go 7th inning in Milwaukee. Brewers on top of the Cardinals 4-1. Now, the story in this game is Jacob Misiorowski. 6 1/3, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 10 strikeouts. He's still in the game at 86 pitches in the 7th. His ERA on the season down to 1.85, and we've seen his National League Cy Young odds drop all the way to the second shot on the board. Chris Sanchez 2-1, followed by Jacob Misiorowski 3.5-1. Boy, am I glad I bet him about 10 days ago at 15-1. This kid, if he stays healthy, has all the makings of putting up eye-popping numbers, but that's the great question, John. Do you believe Milwaukee will allow him to throw the needed innings to win this award?
Well, I think this year compared to last year, we're talking about a different set of circumstances. Mm-hmm. Last year, they called him up. They kind of had the kid gloves on him. You even saw when Milwaukee made the postseason, they had Misiorowski pitching out of the bullpen. I kind of think this is a year where you got to let him, dare I say, go and spread his wings. Here's the biggest problem you run into with these Cy Young votes as far as playing a certain guy to go and win the award. I think you have an unbelievable ticket. I would love to have a share of Misiorowski at 15-1. Not as much Milwaukee handling him. These elbows, these pitchers, they're so fickle. Like, I'm sure there are a lot of people right now counting their money and fantasizing Cam Schlittler at 80-1 as the Cy Young Award winner. I don't want to wish injury upon anybody, but it's late May of a baseball season. A lot can happen between now and the end of the year. I'll give you a perfect example. 2 years ago at this time, if you had Luis Gil as AL Cy Young Award winner, you had an insane number. Kind of fell off in a big way. Missed time in the second half of the year. It was still good enough to go and bring home Rookie of the Year. But when you're talking about the best of the best, and that's the AL MVP, NL MVP, Cy Young for that matter, you got to be careful with these young arms because injuries play a major, major role in this.
Yeah, and unique to Misiorowski, too, it's the style of the body. He's long, he's lean. I looked up during the broadcast, and I think it was the 4th inning, John. They highlighted he had already thrown 30 pitches over 100 miles an hour in the game. And it feels like a ticking time bomb at some point where something's going to go wrong. And then big picture for Milwaukee, they are so desperate and they need him to be that frontline ace because Peralta's gone. Woodruff is injured. And you don't know what you're going to get out of guys like Logan Henderson, who's a kid who I really like a lot. But Mizorowski has to be that stopper. They do have to be very careful with him this season in terms of hopefully winning that Cy Young Award. 3.5 to 1 current number. Paul Skeens up to plus 440. As someone with no shares of Paul Skeens, that feels like a big overreaction to a couple of bad starts to begin the season.
You know, that's totally fair. And he's built like a tank, too, where you don't have the same concerns from an injury perspective with his Skeens that you would like Chris Sale, who has thrown the ball brilliantly for the Atlanta Braves. But the problem, Dusty, you run into is Chris Sale's made of glass, and he's built like me, and he's spent way too many years for extended periods of time on the injured list. You telling me you can count on Chris Sale to go and make 30-plus starts? Hey, I bet the Atlanta Braves isn't over this year, so I certainly hope the answer to that question is yes, but not enough for me to say, hey, I would want to go and hop on plus 600. You know, looking at that Cy Young board, I don't have any action on this. Yamamoto, and I know he has not been vintage Yamamoto. Dude, that guy could go rattle off 5 brilliant starts in a row at 30 to 1. That's a good number, man.
Plenty of time. There's plenty of time for him to get right. I've got Ohtani 25 to 1, so I think I have to bet a little Sanchez maybe here at some point, but we do have a game about to get going. My New York Mets hosting the Cincinnati Reds. It's tough to claim that team. But
Dusty, my goodness, your Mets stink, man.
Well,
I have to talk about them every day on SNY. They are painful.
We'll get into it because I keep trying to not try to believe there's hope, and they're helping me not waste my money on a playoff ticket. But hosting the Reds, and this number has come way down overnight. Minus 160 last night on the Mets. It's down to minus 125. I love the under. I'm on under 7.5. Soto's out of the lineup. Lindor is hurt. Alvarez hurt. They just got swept by Miami over the weekend where they scored 2 runs in 3 games. They're 27th in runs scored. McClain starting for the Mets. He's like the one guy you can trust, but he's coming off his worst start of the year. 6 earned in 5 2/3 at Washington. His K prop is 7.5 at plus money. I considered that. It's a little bit high for me. Instead, I think the Mets, who can't hit lefties, can't hit anyone, they don't do much against Lodolo, and Lodolo's able to have his way with the Mets, and McClain's able to have his way the other side with the Reds. So give me under 7.5 in that game.
Like the sound of that. Remember, Mets don't win, McClain starts. You missed the best of the number, though.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah. All right. That's John Jastrzemski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. We're in on Follow the Money. When we return, your favorite head coach sounds like your favorite bettor with an algorithm. That's next, right here on Follow the Money.
Let me get your attention real quick, podcast listeners. I've got something for you that almost feels too good to be true. First, credit where credit's due. If you're listening to this podcast, you're already leveling up your betting game. You're riding along with our best bets and top angles. And when there's a good game on, you're getting involved with a few props and alt markets as well. There's one more layer if you really want to step things up, and that's VSiN Pro. I've mentioned it before, but things are only getting better for our pro subscribers. We just rolled out our MLB prop projections, breaking down some of the best edges across strikeouts, hits, home runs, and more. And that's on top of everything else pro subscribers already get, including public betting splits, expert picks, and betting guides across the sports calendar. If you haven't tried it yet, stop sleeping on it. You can get your first month just $9.99 or save big with promo code POD26 on the annual subscription. Hit the link in the description and start cashing in with VSiN Pro. All right, back to the show.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Happy Memorial Day. Welcome back into Follow the Money. He is John Jastrzemski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. We should pause for a minute and acknowledge what this day is about here. I know everyone is celebrating, having a cookout, hanging out off from work for the most part. But, I mean, today is about the people who gave their lives, who sacrificed, the greatest sacrifice, so we can all choose to live the life that we want to live. And lucky for us, JJ, we get to choose the life of talking about sports and betting on it for a living here.
Well said, my friend. As someone that lost a relative back in the Vietnam War back in 1966, didn't have the opportunity to meet my uncle. Schoolmate of mine served in our war in Afghanistan. He lost his life back in 2013, so it certainly hits home. Amen to that, brother. Well said. And we're thinking of all the men and women who lost their lives defending this country.
I saw our guy Chris Massaro, Pro Sports Better, refer to you and I as Mike and the Mad Dog because it's two guys from New York. Now, your accent's still strong. My accent has softened up a ton as I've lived all around the country. And when you're doing a radio show in Valdosta, Georgia, and you've got a New York accent, at some point, they just beat it out of you. You just can't have it. They won't listen to you if you've got that accent. But we are both Knicks fans. You're Yankees, I'm Mets, but we come together for the New York Knicks. And to me, like, that's the great equalizer in the city. I know people try to pretend the Nets are a thing and they've done something. Nobody who's from there cares about the Nets. Even in New Jersey, they didn't care about the Nets. The Knicks own the town, they own the area. And tonight they have a chance at history, my friend. For the first time since 1999, they could advance to the NBA Finals. When you think about some of the rosters that you've had to deal with over the years, because I was texting with my buddy about it, about Lou Admonson and Alexei Shved and all these dudes that we've had to watch play for the Knicks. Who is that generic Knick of the past that you're like, all right, we're finally rectifying those demons that we had to deal with earlier in our Knicks fandom?
I was going to give you Lance Thomas and Ron Baker, but Dusty, who's keeping score? Listen, the Knick unison around the city is so spot on. Because with the baseball teams, you have this divide. You have Yankee Met households. Or during football season, you have Jet and Giant fans. And football's such a national sport. Like, I'm a New Yorker. I've lived here my whole life. I'm a Miami Dolphin fan. I have buddies who are Steeler fans and Cowboy fans. It's just, that's the way football works. But you walk around the boroughs. You walk around Long Island. You go up to Westchester County. Everybody is pulling for the Knicks. The city unites around the New York Knicks. And it was an abyss for a long, long time. Post Ewing, they went a decade without going to the playoffs, so winning a playoff game, winning a playoff series. Then they finally do in 2012, 2013. They go into a further abyss, and you wondered, hey, they miss out on Durant. They miss out on Kyrie Irving. Is this franchise ever going to matter again? Leon Rose built it from the ground up with the help of Tom Thibodeau. And since then, they've made every possible brilliant stroke of genius roster move that you can make, whether it's buying in on Jalen Brunson, the OG Anunoby trade, the Cat trade. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Even the Bridges trade looks good right about now. Life is beautiful if you're a Knicks fan. And a little bit of a spoiler alert for when we do best bets and give out some picks on this game a little bit later on. It is going to be a very, very happy Monday night if you're a New Yorker. I love it. I love that you went Lance Thomas. It made me also think about Kurt Thomas, who is the best at drawing charges I've ever seen in the history of the NBA. The Knicks haven't lost a game in a month, and based on your general vibe, I don't believe you think they're going to lose tonight. More on that later. No team, by the way, has ever blown a 3-0 lead in NBA history, and I'll add on to what you just said about this build for the Knicks and how we've gotten to this point where they're playing the best basketball of anyone remaining. That's just a fact. The Thunder, the Spurs, they may be better on paper. They are not executing at the level of the Knicks, and I don't want to hear about the path. I don't want to hear about the East. San Antonio benefited from an injured Minnesota team, right? You have on the other side Oklahoma City with the draw of Phoenix and the Lake. Like, come on. The New York Knicks have taken care of who they need to take care of, and more importantly, I have to come around on a take from about a year ago, and that's Mike Brown might have been the right man for the job. We look at all the moves that they just made, and most notably the Mikal Bridges addition that you touched on. I think Mike Brown has found a way to utilize Mikal Bridges properly when Tom Thibodeau just had him standing in the corner trying to be a spot-up shooter when that's not his game. He's taken pressure off Jalen Brunson. They've utilized this bench very well. You've got Shamet or Hart going off, depending on who gets more minutes. Clarkson and Alvarado, they are truly a different team than they've been in the past, and more importantly, they have something that someone like the Spurs lack. They have that build over the years of dealing with adversity. And at this point in the season, it just feels like a team that is built to handle anything that comes in front of them. And I'm not going to take anything away from the Thunder or the Spurs. I'm just saying the Knicks have a very unique group that's been through a lot together. I think that's totally spot on. And we are lockstep in agreement going back to a year ago. I did not want the Knicks to fire Tom Thibodeau. I thought the Knicks made a mistake in firing, I think, a program builder, and I think one of the NBA's best coaches. Mike Brown, though, has come in and has unlocked something different within this offense. And the crazy thing is, Dusty, it didn't really happen during the regular season. There might have been some glimpses, NBA Cup early, couple of good wins against San Antonio and Denver in the regular season, but the Knicks are down 2-1 against the Atlanta Hawks. I want to remind everybody of this because there was an opportunity right around the NFL draft where you could have gotten the New York Knicks at plus money to beat the Atlanta Hawks. They smoked them in game 4. They smoked them in game 5. They had an all-time game 6. They have not lost the basketball game since that particular point. And he made the change, moving Karl-Anthony Towns to the top of the key. You mentioned Bridges and the way he's come on. He didn't bury him after a couple of rough games against the Hawks. And the Knicks have taken no prisoners ever since. Yes, it's a weak East. Yes, they've gotten a couple of breaks. Who cares? If you're playing basketball like this and you got an all-time point differential over 12 games, 10 games? You're comparing them to all-time teams based upon what they've done in this postseason. You can't just say they have no chance against whoever comes out of the Western Conference. I'm not saying they should be favored.
Nope.
I'm not saying the Knicks are going to win that series. But the idea that they don't belong or it's the varsity against the JV, be careful there.
Yeah, you go ahead. You doubt Jalen Brunson. You tell me how that works out for everyone who's done that his entire career in the NBA. The net rating of the Knicks this year in the playoffs, plus 18.5. That is the biggest I could find, at least going back to 2016. Last year, Oklahoma City was dominant, 8.6, plus 8.6 net rating for them. Boston the year prior, plus 8.6. Denver, plus 8. You go back to Golden State in 18, plus 10.7. In 2017, they were plus 12.9. The Knicks net rating is better than all of those teams. They're still plus 260 to win the NBA Finals and hoist the Larry O'Brien Trophy. Now, on the other side, you've got Cleveland in this game at home, still catching points. We're looking at a number that opened Cleveland -1. All the money's come in on the other side. The Knicks are laying 2.5, depending on where you shop. And Kenny Atkinson talked about where they stand being down 3-0 in this series yesterday when he met with the media.
I think analytically, I think we've won the I said 3 out of 3. We're 2 out of 3 in the expected. I don't know if you guys follow that. There's an expected score, and we won 2 out of 3. And I know you're looking confused, but I'm not. There is really, if you believe in process and all that, take that layer. I know I don't throw that on them. I see it for myself. We have this feeling, then I can go to our analytical table and be like, man, we are, I think last night it was, the expected score was like 1 point or 2. Us shooting way below expected, them shooting way over. I know no one wants to hear that. I think you guys like hearing it. I know, general public, no one wants to hear that. Everyone's outcome based. And, sure, I get that too.
Does Kenny Atkinson believe the words that were coming out of his mouth, or is that a guy desperate to try and save his job because he knows he's the first move that they make if they get swept tonight?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I just know it's an asinine statement. I mean, let's just leave it at that. I don't know if Kenny is grasping at straws after his team played as non-competitive a fourth quarter as you could possibly see. There was no intensity. Basically an elimination game. I know it wasn't an elimination game, Dusty, because it was 2-0 in the series. But if you had any prayer of getting back into this thing, you had to win game 3 at home. Your team comes out and gives up 37 first quarter points. Then they had no interest in playing defense in the fourth quarter. They have an enormous playoff loser in James Harden on their team. They have another guy in Donovan Mitchell who doesn't make anybody better. And then their bigs are basically Mr. Softy 1 and Mr. Softy 2 in Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. That's why anybody who is surprised by this is not paying attention to the Cavaliers. They are soft. This was a ready, made-to-order series for the Knicks. And look, I get that game 2 and game 3 felt like they were baiting you to take the Knicks. It seemed too good to be true. Opened 6.5, got bet down to 5.5. How? I don't know. Sort of same thing in game 3 because it was that game 3 situational spot. Don't let your eyes fool you in game 4. Knicks going to take care of business. They're much better.
Yeah, I have a 6-1 ticket on the Cavs to win the East from pre-Harden trade. And we put out on the VSiN TikTok after the trade that I hated the trade for my ticket. I got eviscerated in the comments. I have been absolutely correct in that take. Harden's a loser. Everywhere he goes becomes a bigger loser. You can't trust the guy in anything that matters. Now, in the Western Conference Finals, things got interesting last night. Have the Spurs unlocked something defensively that could advance them to the finals? We'll break it down on the other side of Follow the Money.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Back on Follow the Money, Dustin Sweetelson alongside John Jastrzemski. Appreciate you making us a part of your day. However, you may be tuning in, Sirius XM Channel 158, YouTube TV, the VSiN Watch app, and radio affiliates across the United States of God Bless America. I think when the finals or the conference finals began, most of us were kind of in the same boat looking at this Spurs-Thunder matchup. To me, JJ, it felt a lot like NFL season. We got to the NFC title game. It was Rams-Seahawks. Whoever won that, we felt like was going to win it all. We were probably going to get an epic battle between the two. And it looks like we are going to get a pretty similar result with the Spurs and Thunder here in the finals, where it may be going 7. To help us break it all down, we're going out to the Progressive Guest Line. We're going to welcome in Sean Devaney, who covers the NBA for Heavy.com. And he joins us now here on Follow the Money. So, Sean, talk to me, man. Coming into this series, your expectations for a young Spurs squad that seemed to have Oklahoma City's Thunder during the regular season, and then a Thunder squad looking to go back-to-back. What were your expectations for this series, and has it lived up to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty clear it was going to be a good series. I did think that Oklahoma City would take more control over this thing right from the beginning, and that you'd have the Spurs sort of swimming upstream a little bit more. But, you know, the Spurs obviously with that remarkable game one kind of turned all that on its head, and it's been game on ever since. You know, obviously the injuries right now are probably the biggest story that the Spurs were able to get their guys back, Harper and De'Aaron Fox, and the Thunder weren't. With Jalen Williams out and AJ Mitchell out, and that to me was really the story of Game 3. Of course, Game 4. Of course, the Spurs played very well, not taking nothing away from them, but the injuries right now. It's been tough on the Thunder, and they've got to get those guys back to really be able to finish this thing off.
So, Sean, you mentioned the injuries. Totally fair point, especially when you're talking about an all-star player. Yet we've seen Oklahoma City be able to rise to the occasion just because they have so many different ways to beat you. When it comes to San Antonio, Game 4, they were spot on. They were firing on all cylinders. They looked like, they played like the more desperate team. Was Game 4, in your opinion, more a sense of, hey, desperation spot for the Spurs, you got their very best? Or did you see any adjustments that are sustainable and winning in Oklahoma City in either Game 5 or Game 7, something they're going to have to do if they're going to win this series?
Yeah, I thought the one thing that they did in that game that was something that now Oklahoma City is going to have to game plan for was, they had been sending so much attention to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and really had been, sort of cheating off him with other guys and trying to double team him, even triple team him at times. And I think what we saw in Game 4 is they really played him more straight up, and they had a bunch of different guys on him. Devin Vassell, I thought, was really good. Stephon Castle plays him very well. So they had a bunch of different guys on him, and were able to be physical with him without fouling. And they did sort of everything that you'd want a one-on-one defender to do. And that really did take away a lot of those open looks that we saw from the Thunder in the first 3 games. So I think that's probably the big adjustment is that, look, the Spurs played Shai pretty much straight up. They did a good job. He was only 6 for 15 on the day, and that's obviously you'll take that any time you're playing against him. Without Jalen Williams out there, I thought the rest of the Thunder really struggled because they weren't getting the open looks that they had been getting in the first 3 games once you had them playing, a more straight-up brand of defense.
Sean Devaney is our guest, Heavy.com NBA writer. Now, you mentioned the impact without those 2 guys in the lineup. We don't know where they stand for the next game with A.J. Mitchell and for Jalen Williams. Now, when you look at the rest of the Thunder, who steps up now to be that secondary scoring option? And do you give more credit to San Antonio for slowing them down here and finding a way to defend them? Or do you think that the Thunder just need to find someone else who can score in the next game to kind of balance things out for their offense?
Yeah, I think for one thing, Shea's got to do a better job of really forcing the issue. If he's getting single covered, he's got to make them pay, and that was not the case. Like I said, the Spurs have very good individual defenders, but there's no better offensive creator than Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So he's got to be much more assertive, I think, in Game 5. I think it starts there, and then everything sort of plays off it. I've been less than impressed with Chet Holmgren. I think everybody has, and you'd like to certainly see more from him offensively. But I think if you get Shai going, in that range where he's scoring 30 to 40 points, he's in that 32, 34 point range. Now you're going to get everybody else involved, and you're going to get some easier shots for those guys, whether it's McCain, whether it's Alex Caruso. Both of those guys were terrible. I mean, you can say that they were being guarded better, and they were, but still, they missed a lot of shots that they would know. And McCain was 1 for 10 in that game. Alex Caruso really struggled. He only took one shot in his entire Game 4. So I think once you get Shai going, you'll start to get some of those other guys going. But I think it's going to start there, and then some of the other guys will sort of feed off that.
Sean, moving over to the Eastern Conference Finals, it's a fait accompli, whether it's Monday night or on Wednesday. The Knicks are going to be in the NBA Finals for the first time since 1999. What they've done over this 10-game winning streak is absolutely absurd. You look at the point differential, you look at the way they have taken no prisoners. Are they going to be formidable? Because based upon what I've seen, my perception pre-postseason, the Knicks are not going to have enough if they get through the East to go and give OKC or San Antonio or whoever a legitimate bona fide big-time series. I don't know how you could watch these last 10 games and think the Knicks are going to be some sort of pushover here. Have they changed your sort of view on them based upon what they've done here?
They have been one of the streakiest teams in the league, and that's been, all throughout the season. So now they're on the good streak, and, obviously they're hoping they can keep that going for a couple more weeks, but we've seen them play like this. We've seen them, win 10, 11 games in a row. Because when things are firing right and when everybody's filling their roles, they can be a really good team. It's just when things go badly for them, it tends to really, for whatever reason, if you want to call it toughness or mental toughness or whatever it is, they tend to, collapse pretty fast. So as long as that doesn't happen, as long as they don't get that, that sort of timber moment, where the tree gets knocked over, if they can kind of stay strong, then you have to give them a chance. They've shown that they can be versatile. They've shown that they can win in a couple different ways. Whether it's relying on Brunson, whether it's running through Cat, whether it's, OG Anunoby's been fantastic. Bridges has come alive after really a terrible month or so coming into the playoffs. They've got so many different weapons that you have to give them, absolutely, you have to give them credit for that. But I do think that, you worry about if they get punched in the mouth. They haven't reacted well to that all throughout the season. We'll have to see if that happens in the finals.
Sean, about 2 minutes to go here. Number tonight, Knicks are laying 2.5 on the road. As JJ alluded to, it feels pretty inevitable in this series. But big picture for Cleveland. What do they look like next year? What are the changes they make? Because they went all in this season, and I'm sure it starts with Kenny Atkinson. But how different does the roster look next year if they don't get to the finals?
Yeah, and that's going to be the big question. Is that there's so many guys who they're going to have to make decisions on because they're the only team that's in the second apron at this point. They are the most expensive team in the NBA, and so there's no way they can run this team back. They've already sort of made a promise to James Harden that they're bringing him back. So then it becomes, okay, is it Donovan Mitchell who goes? Is it Evan Mobley who goes? Is it Jarrett Allen who goes? One of those guys is not going to be back in Cleveland. I can guarantee that. They've got to make a change along those lines. And then, do they get it? What do they bring back then? Do you go after Giannis and do you find a way to cut some salary and bring in Giannis? Do you go after LeBron? Find a way to cut some salary, bring in LeBron. They're going to have a ton of questions. But, yeah, there's no question that they can make a change of the coach, but that's not going to be enough because this is the most expensive team in the league. They're going to have to trade one of those guys.
He's Sean Devaney. You can read him over at heavy.com and on X at Sean Devaney. Appreciate the time today on Memorial Day Monday. Enjoy the basketball, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome stuff from Sean there. And we've got to get you situated on baseball when we return, and want to remind you, if you're looking to bet baseball every single day, we've got the podcast for you. It's the VSiN Daily Diamond. Former big league pitcher Jensen Lewis, Dave Ross, they got you covered. Sides, totals, props, futures, and more. You can download the VSiN Daily Diamond wherever you get your podcast. While you're there, search for VSiN. You can see everything we cover, from college football to golf and more. All of it available wherever you get your podcast. This is VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. You're listening to Follow the Money. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. He's John Jastrzemski. We've got a big game on the wood tonight for our New York Knicks. We haven't even touched on the hockey. And last night, I'm sitting there at dinner. I'm seeing Colorado's up 3-0. I get in the car, take my time. I get home, pop on the TV, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I should check in on the game. All of a sudden, script completely flipped. We'll touch on the hockey, get you situated on the baseball as my New York Mets are reaching new levels of low. That's coming up next on Follow the Money.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
May the 25th be with you on a Memorial Day Monday. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. He's John Jastrzemski. We're in for Mitch and Paul today on Follow the Money, VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. It's an awesome day for baseball, man. I love when baseball takes center stage. See, people don't get this. You've been in New York forever, John, so you understand this. But you go around the country, you listen to sports talk radio. Baseball is very rarely brought up outside of places like us who bet on this every single day. But in New York, I remember calling the schmooze overnight when I was like 17 years old to talk about the Mets trading for bullpen help in like the middle of November. Like all year long, baseball matters. Baseball is relevant. And it does appear for one of the teams in New York, it's going to be relevant the rest of the way. For the other one, the New York Mets, who trail 2-0 in the third to the Reds, I'm officially saying the season's over.
Well, I can't fight you on that. And I hope you're wrong, because as someone that works at SNY, we really would like to have a season where the Mets are alive and well and playing meaningful games in the second half of the year. But to just offer some perspective on this, the Mets going into the season were the second favorite in the National League to win the World Series. Just think about that for a minute. They were the second favorite in the National League behind the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it feels like their season is over on Memorial Day. Now, I'm always hesitant, Dusty, because 2 years ago, the Mets looked as dead as can be. They were double-digit games under 500. They had the whole Lopez throwing the glove deal. They played the Dodgers. I'm like, this season is lost at sea. Grimace shows up. They start singing OMG. They go on a crazy heater. And with the expanded postseason, in some ways, it feels like you're never out of it. But where's the hope coming from? The team looks like a disaster. And that's why you see the Mets at plus 360 to make the playoffs. And I can gather you have no interest in taking that action.
I have talked myself in and out of it so many times. And every time I think I'm about to pull the trigger, they do something like today or over the weekend against Miami, and they just let me down. Now, to offer some more perspective of how long a baseball season can be, on this date 1 year ago, the New York Mets were 32-21. They were 11 games above 500. They were 2 games back in the East behind Philly, so they relinquished the lead there. But they were still very much one of the best teams in baseball, the second best record in all of the National League, and they wound up not making the playoffs. The hubris of David Stearns to tear down a lineup that was not the issue and not address the only need that they've had in back-to-back seasons, which was frontline starting pitching to stop the bleeding, it's going to go down as some of the most bonehead moves. I would put this offseason for the Mets worse than the year Steve Phillips made the trade for Mo Vaughn, for the year he signed Jeremy Burnitz and Roger Cedeno, because I'd argue on paper, that team was maybe the best team in baseball. The Mets were never going to be the best team in baseball, and it's all just absolutely falling apart. We should note right now, 2-0 in that game, but Nolan McLean's off to a pretty good start per usual. 2 1/3 innings, 4 strikeouts. He is at 46 pitches, though, here in the third. I think you can still get plus money on under 7.5 Ks in game on him. That's something I would consider right now on Nolan McLean, who just has to be so pinpoint perfect every time out for the Mets. We do have an extra
and
innings.
His record in these starts has been awful, Dusty.
Yep.
awful, despite the fact that for the most part, he's pitched pretty well. They don't score any runs for him. And as far as that money line is concerned with Cincinnati, it absolutely plummeted right before first pitch. I can't imagine that was all Juan Soto related, but it felt like a lot of the wise guys, a lot of the sharp bettors wanted to get in on the Reds, considering the Mets can't score a run.
No, they can't hit lefties, but they can't hit anyone, so it doesn't really matter for them. We're about to go to the 11th inning in Baltimore, by the way. Rays and Orioles all tied up. Tampa Bay jumped out to a 1-0 lead. The Rays tied it later on, I believe, in the 7th inning, and it's been 2-2 after Tampa Bay tied it back up in the 9th ever since then. I have plus 115 on Baltimore. I could get off that bet a little bit and take minus 142 on the Rays. It just feels like the deeper and deeper you go into this game, it's like being dragged into deep waters with someone who just knows how to navigate things better than you. Like, I just think Tampa understands like what's at hand here as Nolan McLean just gave up a home run. Cincinnati's out to a 3-0 lead at Citi Field. This is absolutely brutal. And by the way, I'm on the under 7.5 in that game. That in-game total is now up to 8.5.
Dusty, you're going to need the Mets to cooperate. That's what that boils down to. You're going to need the Met offense to kind of keep on keeping on, if you know what I'm saying.
100%. That was J.J. Bleday going yard against Nolan McLean. That's interesting, though, just from a National League Rookie of the Year perspective. We'll get into it a little bit later on in the show because we're about at the 1/3 mark. And I think there's an NL Rookie of the Year bet that makes a lot of sense. That's a long shot because I don't understand some of the names that are jumbled at the top that are short, like Nolan McLean and J.J. Weatherholt and others. I think that's an awards market that can absolutely develop throughout the season. Over in Kansas City, your Yankees, 2-1 over the Royals, 5th inning, flipping the order back over for Judge today as he's at the dish. And I just, watching this game, I've noticed the ball has been jumping a little bit. It's been hit out into the outfield quite a few times. I think we've reached a point of the year where the weather's heated up in the Midwest, and we're about to see a few more overs than we were seeing to begin the season.
Yeah, because that weather is warming up, and the Yankees escape Tampa Bay pitching. They escape the disgusting temperatures that have been at Yankee Stadium on Friday and on Sunday, and it's like, okay, we get some Kansas City barbecue, we get some Kansas City sun, and away we go, but only 2 runs. So it feels like the Yankees have left some meat on the bone in this game. Will Warren has kind of navigated with a couple of runners on base. So you may have to sweat that position of your under. I'm probably going to have to sweat the Yankees as they go into the bottom half of the 5th inning. Here's what I'm rooting for. Dusty, let's just end the game right now. You get your under, I get my Yankees, away we go. Everybody wins.
Well, I need 2 more innings because I got Warren to go over 16.5 total outs recorded here.
All right, two more innings.
Two more innings. Okay. We're good. It looks like a perfect day in the Midwest as Bobby Witt just made a catch to end the inning. We will go to the bottom of the 5th, 2-1, Yankees with the lead. Your adjusted total in game is now 7.5. New York's minus 207, plus $1.56 with the Royals. So Tampa's back out for the 11th inning, top of the 11th, hoping to take a lead here against Tyler Wells, who enters the game for Baltimore. We'll keep you updated on all the baseball all day long. We do have a game about to get going with Arizona and San Francisco. We'll touch on in a moment, but we haven't hit the hockey yet. And I'm not the biggest hockey guy ever since Mike Milbury ruined the Islanders in the early 2000s, but playoff hockey is a different animal. And I just have to admit to the audience, I was out at dinner last night. I'm looking up at the game. I'm watching the first period. It's 3-0 Colorado. I'm like, all right, the Avalanche, who are the favorite all season to win the West, they're doing what they need to do. They're bouncing back. They're going to put the Knights on their heels. All of a sudden, pack up dinner, get the to-go boxes. Not mine. Of course, I finished my meal, but everyone else with me had to-go boxes. We get back home. I flip on the game. Like, what happened? What do you mean Vegas is winning? As that also ends a streak of road teams winning 8 in a row in the postseason here. VGK had a 7% chance to win after going down 3-0. They scored 5 straight goals, 5 unanswered goals to win the game, 5-3. I'm sure you were monitoring it last night, but were you like me where you just kind of wrote it off as, all right, we got a series here?
Well, I looked at the series price, and it felt low for a team that was on the road down 2-0. And I know the big injury from McCall in Colorado, and obviously that comes into play. And like you, Dusty, I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but playoff hockey, I get into it. I start betting it. I thought long and hard about laying it with Colorado. I was like, all right, this team's got to respond, right? They've been one of the best teams in the NHL all year. The narrative around the sport has been, hey, you're on a collision course. It's going to be Colorado in the West. It's going to be Carolina in the East. These teams are definitely going to match up in the Stanley Cup final. And yet John Tortorella's Vegas Golden Knights have other plans. And what a remarkable story. And I know we see this a ton in hockey with coaches getting fired at the end of a year, and all of a sudden something changes. There's a spark, there's a different feel, a different energy, and the team transforms and takes off. Well, Tortorella working his magic with Vegas. He's now, 5 wins away from the most insane Stanley Cup coaching journey you could possibly have, right? Like going from being a broadcaster, hanging out, not really dialed in, to the day-to-day of being with the team, being in the trenches. Now he's got Vegas 1 win away from winning this series. Moral of the story, Dusty, I'm glad I didn't bet Colorado last night.
Yeah.
I thought about it.
Sometimes you got to even if the situation makes all the sense in the world, like tonight, situationally, Cleveland, based on no emotions, nothing we've seen throughout the series. Situationally, Cleveland's the play. You won't find me betting the Cavs. And now we're looking at John Tortorella, 18-4-1. 18-4-1 since taking over. The only comparison I have is maybe Jack McKeon when he took over the Marlins late in the year, led them to a World Series. That's the only comparison. If someone has one better, at VSiN Live, you can give us a tweet. A better comparison of someone taking over a team mid-season and them taking the jump that the Knights have taken. Hey, the sports calendar, it never stops, and the Sharp Plays, they cover it all, and they've been winning for 15 straight years. All of it documented, logs posted publicly at sharpplays.com. That kind of transparency is rare in this industry. When the Sharp Plays moves, the sports books take notice. Advanced AI, trusted insider intel, they find value before the numbers shift. Respected, watched, feared. Start winning with them over at sharpplays.com today. That's John Jastrzemski. I'm Dustin Sweetelson. This is Follow the Money. And when we return, we will look at tonight's Game 4, Cleveland and the Knicks, including a couple player prop angles that really jumped out to me. That's next on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.